Thanks for joining us today. I'm Justin Keys, TRG's Technical Solutions Specialist, and we have a couple guests here to answer some questions.
My name is Alfredo Machado. I am a channel manager with Datalogic. I've been with the company over 3 years and very happy to be here.
My name is Casey Seagraves, and I'm the Territory Account Manager covering Ohio and Kentucky with Zebra Technologies.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for joining us. One of the first topics that we're going to talk about are VMU computers and forklifts and mounting gear. One of the biggest questions is what's the difference between a rugged fork mount lift versus other devices?
I would say that is the main big difference between a VMU is they're purpose built for that intention, to live in that environment, to handle the vibrations, the ruggedness, and also the ease of use for the individual on the fork truck.
So what are some use cases you guys are seeing these rugged forklift devices being used in?
It's built for that purpose, so having a vehicle mount computer on a forklift makes the life of the user easier. So you avoided the manual process you're doing right now. If you have to go back to a computer, check what the next activity is, or going on a forklift to a specific location, have to go back, check what the next steps are, etc. You have it right there in the forklift, and then you can pair different devices as well. So you can pair a mobile computer, you can pair a handheld scanner as well, and do different applications at the same time. So if you're doing picking, etc., you can be more efficient in the process and increase productivity overall.
You have these rugged mounted computers. How are you guys seeing them mounted to forklifts? Like, what kind of gear are you guys seeing getting those mounted up?
I hate to make mention of a brand specific, but we're really seeing RAM mounts for the majority. And the reason being is because that ability to articulate in any direction. I've been in some manufacturing environments where they've got little smaller duty fork trucks because the environment's much more dense. So the size of the fork truck's a little bit condensed. And there's some large individuals who get on those forklifts, there's only so much space. So the fact that those arms can really articulate and place that anywhere in space that's comfortable for that user, I think that's kind of the leading solution.
What are some of the latest features you guys are seeing on these rugged devices?
Oh yeah, good question. I think one of the biggest things is a full push to Android operating system, for one, just at the core. I mean, the Windows is no longer really available in the marketplace. A lot in the refurb. There's some older legacy devices which are manufacturer dependent are approaching end of sale because support for Windows obviously gone or going away. So I would say that's really one of the biggest core ideas that's a little bit different.
Obviously, there's other forms of asset management and data input, RFIDs out there. So what are some of the basic components that you're seeing out there as part of an RFID system?
Yeah, the key word though in your question was system, because we can't approach this as a device-specific solution. This is more of a holistic solution that starts with a proper software solution that's going to feed into the ERP, WMS system, MES system if it's in manufacturing. So with that being said, it's a different sale from what most are historically used to, which is making sure that you have the right pieces in place. Also being on site to understand that environment really helps you decide which pieces you can fit into the puzzle to provide that total solution. It's not really a, well, what are your needs? There's a lot more time because this is not a device in speccing a specific device solution. This is a much more deep, meaning software has to be in line first, and secondly, I would look to add the peripheral pieces that are going to feed into the software that meet the needs of that specific environment.
Yeah, I think that's a key component, right? Because it's going to take more time to go into those opportunities when it's about RFID and making sure everything is in place and go deep in understanding that all the pieces of the puzzles truly fit to have a complete and functioning system.
Yeah, that's generically speaking, and a shameless plug for Zebra. We do have a new piece of technology, which is it's really cool because what it does is it takes the active RFID tag and how it functions and how you can see something move through real time, but it eliminates that highly costly tag from the equation by offering the ability to use passive tags. And with array mounts throughout the ceiling, it can send signals down to cover the entire warehouse floor and track multiple devices, see them in real time down to 2 feet, but without the highly high cost of tagging each individual piece with a $20, $30 tag itself.
So what are some unique use cases you guys are seeing these RFID systems deployed for?
What we see most are high value assets. They tend to kind of lead the way. It's not necessarily things that are going to be case picked, for example, which are individual low cost items, but high value assets. For example, robots. Robot manufacturer, if they lose track of a robot, there's a significant sum of funds behind the assets, the material, the build time. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that they could lose. So what I'm seeing leading this is really high value assets. And then that trickling down to just people who want to maybe automate the factory, or want to automate a process, or automate inventory tracking within a warehouse environment as well. And what I find is those doing barcoding today are having an easier transition than jumping from maybe pen and paper, limited traceability, to go full RFID. Really, those steps are kind of important.
When should an end user consider RFID versus traditional scanning?
I think they can start considering now. It's just understanding what the process is going to look like, the investment, how many, fitting those pieces in the puzzle we were talking about. So if they have a system right now in place that's working for them, maybe it's understanding how it's going to improve it overall. And then there's some accessories that's going to help you transition from the traditional system to an RFID process that's going to bring different benefits. So I think it's, right now there are different solutions out there that's going to help transition in general. And I think that's where obviously TRG and the different experts in the industry is going to help in understanding how much it's going to take and what it entails to do that transition.
Yeah, the key thing there is return on investment for the end user. Like, everyone wants to automate, but at what cost? If the cost the benefit doesn't outweigh the cost to go fully automated, then obviously that's really the big deterrence.
So after you've implemented all these RFID systems and barcode scanners in the warehouse, you actually have to have those products leave the warehouse. So what types of unique solutions are being streamlined to get those devices out of the warehouse into the supply chain?
Yeah, I think you have different route applications. If you're using third-party logistics and then the product ships out the door to a courier and then out to the consumer, or if there's different solutions for a retailer like curbside pickup, etc. There's different solutions out there where you can connect different mobile devices to the system, to the WMS, etc. And then make sure that you have real-time data on what's going on in your business. So if you have route applications, what route the salesperson needs to take in the most efficient way, and then depending on the volume business, when do you need to source more inventory from one micro-fulfillment center to the other, or from one store to the other, and that's where technology plays a great role, and then mobile devices connect that in the different process to streamline.
With the pandemic and everything, there's all these buy online, pick up in store models. How are those transforming the warehouse industry?
We saw last year, and I think this was happening pre-COVID as well. It's just that COVID accelerated that process greatly, right? So we know about dark stores, for example, where retailers are using some stores that were for consumers before, and now they're closing them to the public because they're doing different processes inside those dark stores and making sure they are as close as possible to the consumer. Right now, you have a consumer that it's as demanding as ever, and they want the product as fast as possible, efficiently delivered to their house, and then that opens the door to reverse logistics for return issues, and then that's where I think the whole transition, it's bringing a lot of benefits, and the retailers are starting to understand that this is something that stayed here and then maybe become permanent in terms of using this type of micro-fulfillment centers to be as close as possible to the consumer.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is the omni-channel sort of started it all. It didn't start it all, but it really made people pay more attention. Correct. And then the pandemic just shot it out at light speed, where quite literally companies who are invested in the warehouse I mean, today I'm finding end users expanding 2-3-fold, opening new distribution centers just everywhere. You know, and within our region, I hate to say this, within our Midwest region, we're positioned perfectly to take advantage of that in the marketplace because businesses from the East and West Coast, they plant DCs right in the middle.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, you know, they understood the value of investing in these type of things because maybe they were not doing it at the pace it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And they just realized we got to do this as fast as possible because if not, they're not going to be able to compete. And right now with competition being as it is, you know, people are going now more than ever to e-commerce. They want, you know, curbside pickup. They want to order on the phone, pick up in the store, or do a hybrid model. You know, so the traditional shopping experience has changed so much that, you know, customers are truly understanding that they need to be prepared to offer all different type of forms and options to the consumer.
Yeah, it's changed the consumer, right? Because now I think, well, do I need to see this in person before I make a purchase decision? Do I really? And if it's easy returns, maybe I can order this size and the other size and then return it simply.
Imagine the problem that brings to the end user, right? So if we're enabling the consumer to be able to return with no argument, like just you order, you can return it, that opens a big door for reverse logistics. So making sure, understanding, you know, where the product is, what's the condition of the product, what's the reason behind the return, and then, you know, to what centers that return going, and streamlining that process, you know, takes a lot of technology that we have in place. So that's good.
So with today's new adoption of ERPs, what kind of differences are you seeing from early forms of asset management?
ERPs are providing solutions to the customer to be as efficient as possible in making decisions, in connecting the different devices out there in the field, even though it's a mobile computer, a POS system, a tablet, whatever it is, it's all connected in the same system. So you know where your device is, what the status is. You can get information on the customer address, whatever it is, on billing information, etc. So those type of system, what's doing is making sure the operation is as efficient as possible in streamlining everything through one ERP.
And what's interesting too is some of the new technologies that are being utilized, like augmented reality, for example. If the WMS or ERP, not necessarily ERP, but WMS has the capability to take advantage of cutting edge technologies, because not all do, they can really speed up processes, especially like bin picking. You know, that's going to be something that we'll see a lot more of probably in the future.
What kind of challenges could customers expect when deploying one of these new ERP systems?
I think that's different from every end user, right?
Yeah, correct, exactly.
Because I've talked to a few where some are pulling their hair out and some are in love, they love with the process. I think what I would say is one of the big things is just because you're taking on a new updated ERP, a brand, or you're adopting a new one, maybe for the first time, maybe you're switching, or even WMS. There's an expectation there that I think we have to make sure we have all hands on deck to support. And sometimes I think the scope of the internal resources that are going to be required to help feed the information to that ERP or WMS provider to make that thing work as efficiently and up to speed and as expected can sometimes be overlooked.
Yeah, and you know, it's like you said, it all depends on the end user and what type of system they have in place right now, where they want to go, and what that process is going to entail. And then it's something that's not going to happen in one day. So it's, you know, I think you can delay it as much as possible, but then understand what the benefits of implementing that either new ERP or transitioning from one to the other it's going to bring, and then maybe it makes sense to go through that transition now than waiting because you're afraid of, you know, how much it's going to interrupt your process. But at the end of the day, the transition is happening because of the reason, right? So it's going to bring you different benefits. It's going to improve efficiency, productivity, et cetera. So it's just understanding how the process is going to look, and then what's your current situation and where you want to go.
Yeah, that's one of those things that they're painful up front, but when you get to the other side of it, glad that's over with, but everything's going well now. You know.
What are some typical timeline expectations that customers should realize when they're getting ready to deploy these new systems and new hardware?
It depends on the project, right? So it take months to a year. It's
As a hardware provider, I would never say that I'm an expert in setting their expectations for that. But what I can tell you is what I've seen some customers experience, which is, if they've truly kind of got themselves ready to accept and move forward, I've seen ERPs as little as 4 months. The typical time frame is about 8, but I've seen some that usually the individuals who had stressful interactions, they're in about a year. I don't always know the answer why to that, but what I can say is those who are prepared properly tend to have a better experience from.
you need to be prepared, and you need to be willing to understand the interruption that's going to bring as part of the process. So once you're on the other side, you gotta understand why it took that time, or you went maybe through some hoops, etc. But at the end of the day, the benefits are definitely gonna make sense, and you'll see why you went through it. And I think customers, they may want to avoid that process, but then if they don't implement it on time, maybe the competition is doing it, and then they're bringing all the benefits and making better informed decisions.
So how is wireless technology continuing to still grow in warehouse environments?
Warehouse is pretty widely adopted, in on the shop floor in manufacturing environments. It's you'd be surprised though. I've sat in on some meetings with large organizations who might make vehicles we all drive, and IT doesn't know the control staff. They're not communicating with one another, and a lot of these high-end manufacturers, manufacturing in general, Wi-Fi on the shop floor is not even that widely adopted. So you have to be very careful and qualify those. So from a mobile perspective, if we wanted to sell mobile computers, that's really a big key differentiator. That infrastructure doesn't always exist widely as it does in other mobile customers. So.
What are some challenges companies are facing when deploying wireless?
I think security is one of them, right? So they want to make sure they're as safe as possible. So implementing wireless technology that's going to help them, connect on a safe environment, platform, etc. So I think I would put as a number one, I guess. It's just how concerned they are about safety, and where do they want to connect and interact with the information they're exchanging,
Yeah, they're used to closed loop systems if they don't have Wi-Fi on the shop floor today. That means they've got pipe and wire running most of their communication, and it's all central to programmable logic controllers on machines feeding data from the machine direct to the ERP, and it's always typically done through a hard wire, not wirelessly. And then the other thing is cost, too. A lot of manufacturing environments I've been in, literally, I've been in some where somebody takes a fastener that comes out of a bull shaker and they put it in a nest to spin on a table to be inspected and then kicked off as good or bad. So when you're manufacturing fasteners and you're probably supplying somebody who's tried to get the best price from you, you don't always have a big budget. So I find oftentimes a Wi-Fi project on their shop floor is something that you just continue to put off sometimes.
So why upgrade what's already working? What are the latest features? Why would a customer upgrade to newer wireless infrastructure?
I think, the different, it's going to be about, what do you have right now, and then where you want to go, and what benefit it brings. It all depends on what system you're looking at. So like, you were saying, it's, what's your budget and why you want to implement. If you're going to implement something fairly simple, that's going to be wireless, and then it's not going to change much your current, operation. I'm not sure how many benefits it's really going to bring. So it all depends how far and how much you want to invest.
Yeah, another ROI thing, right? How mobile do you want your workforce to be? Are you losing money because they're not as mobile as you'd like them to be? Where you're at today, is there a place that makes more sense for your workforce? And if that investment in wireless gets them there as that key piece of infrastructure to take advantage of new technologies that are on that platform.
What necessary components are needed for a push-to-talk environment?
Yeah, honestly, Wi-Fi is first and foremost. It's not even worth talking to anyone about a push-to-talk option to increase communication amongst workers, management, one-to-one, one-to-many kind of communications. It doesn't matter if that wireless infrastructure isn't available. I just don't see cellular being a solid solution within big manufacturing plants. There's too much metal. There's concern over signal strength sometimes. There's a lot of options to boost signal, but really, truly Wi-Fi, a rugged, well-built Wi-Fi system is always going to be a better solution than cellular.
how does push-to-talk differ from two-way radio communication?
How direct the communication is with the system, with a voice application, making sure that the user is getting the commands without any type of interruption in the communication, and then being efficient on how that system is implemented. It's gonna avoid any type of issue and errors, and then it's gonna increase productivity overall.
So it's always a one-to-many communication. So there's no option for a one-to-one communication amongst individuals. And also one other thing too is a lot of the new push-to-talk platforms also offer the ability to text message. And these are huge because if you want to communicate via text, whether you want that message to be received instantaneously or eventually, keep in mind shop floor workers don't typically have email accounts. So it's another workaround for some text communication.
What are some advantages of having push-to-talk in your warehouse?
Efficiency, just being able to
Productivity and
communicate.
overall, yeah.
In some of the platforms today too, they're apps, and they're available for multitude of platforms, whether they're iOS, they're Android, they're PC, that you can download on your PC, meaning that an out-of-office worker, maybe a senior manager with a company-issued phone, for example, they can be within that too. They don't have to buy a Datalogic device. They don't have to buy a Zebra device and carry that. And really it's a nice new technology to really kind of, it does a lot of better things than radio does today.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We got a lot of great information from you guys.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Cheers.
Cheers.